almsgiving is a key aspect of the Lenten experience. Were there any moments in the Holy Land that provided you opportunities for almsgiving? There were. I'd say, as was mentioned before, the Franciscans are the custodians of the Holy Land, and I think it's only 1% of the entire Holy Land area, Jerusalem and surrounding, that's Christian. And so I'd say there was an awareness of, because you could walk into free for all these buildings. It's open all day long. And so that realization, yes, as a Christian, even though I'm in another part of the world, we have a responsibility to support. That was real. But to go a little deeper on almsgiving, I remember one time listening to a talk by Scott Hahn, and he said, very often as Catholics, we want our faith cheap. And then he added, you get what you pay for. And I'm a lot older than you guys. I was in the working world for a long time. And I'm a little embarrassed to say that although I was making money and working every day, there was a time in my own life when I wasn't giving what I could have. And it probably stemmed from growing up when my own parents didn't 6 children, my father worked in a factory, just didn't have a lot. So they weren't able to give a lot, but they gave a lot in time. And I think there was this increased awareness in my own life, business, and I brought that into priesthood, I think, of just the reality that we have, the necessity of all of us as best we can to support the church. But almsgiving, time, talent, treasure, and stewardship. It's more than just the funds. It's the giving of our heart, the giving of ourselves, the giving of one of the hardest things to give, which is our time, which we often keep very selfishly to ourselves. So I think the Holy Land did give a deeper sense of almsgiving. Those 3 stools of the spiritual life: prayer, fasting, and almsgiving. But to just part of the Christian life is to be generous with everything that we have, our very life, because Christ poured out everything for us. And we echo and imitate that.
And from my time there, one of the things that I also treasured was the ability to meet some of the Christians of the Holy Land, who live in a rather tenuous situation. I mean, especially the most amount of Christians that I dealt with who weren't pilgrims were the ones living in Bethlehem on the West Bank, and they are in a tenuous place because there's not very many of them. Overall, the Arab Christians try to leave because it's hard to make a living, and you're living on the West Bank, which has a lot of restrictions on it, but you're also a Christian in a Muslim majority part of it, and it's hard to keep your identity, and there's a lot of pressures put on you all over the place, whether for work or for your education, or it's tricky, and you could feel that kind of that stress on the Christians who were there. Some of them are artisans who make beautiful things that they sell. But there was one evening when I was in Bethlehem where I remember a group of guys who were a little bit older than I were saying, like, take us with you. I'm like, I know you can't, but it's like, we don't. It's hard for us to be here. It's hard for us to be here. But then you'll talk to other shop owners or artisans who saying, like, we're proud to be here because we are the witnesses to Christ who have stayed. And so that sense of whether it's the Good Friday collection that the church often takes up to just support the schools and the missions in the Holy Land who kind of help provide services to these Christians, to realize that there's this faithful group, this faithful body who is part of the whole body of Christ, which are these witnesses there, and they're living a difficult life where there's a lot of pressures put on them, and that our generosity towards them is important. Yeah.
And I think it's a reminder of what we have, and we have our own struggles as Christians, as Catholics, in our context, in our world, our country, but there are places in the world where it really is this incredible challenge where people are being martyred for their faith to this very day. And to keep that in mind, when we talk about living our faith, and when we think about these martyrs as we celebrate them on different feast days and things like that, would we be willing to offer and sacrifice, for our faith? And so many people around the world to this day are doing that, and we want to try our best in our own ways to live up to that. We want to be able to support them when we can, and in the Holy Land we get to see a bit of that.